Hello explorers and welcome to another video. Today we are going to talk about Plausible. And this might be a plausible solution for you if you want to have some analytics on your site and you might not be trusting other vendors or have some problem with handling GDPR issues or so on. So let's switch over to my screen here and we're gonna install Plausible. So first off, I'm gonna install the, let's see here. We're gonna start with installing a bunch of packages so we can actually install something. And this is a standard Debian install, so we don't have any packages here. So what I will install is Docker Compose, so we can just use a Docker container as is. I'm gonna install Git because we're gonna download the Git repository for this specific solution, and I'm also going to install npm, and that's not required by the software. It's just that I want to show you how to compile the specific script and what the result will be, and that is used by npm. So I will have it like that just so I can show you. So this will take a little while to install all these packages, and I will be back when it's done. Now that is done, we have installed all the required packages. Now I don't want to download or clone a couple of Git repositories. First off, I will take the analytics part, and this is what is actually running in our Docker container. So this is the source code of the specific solution. And then I want to have this hosting repository, and it pretty much just have the Git these Docker Compose files. So if we go into hosting here and look, we see that we have an environment variable and we have this compose YAML. So in this environment variable, we will want to do a couple of edits. So first off, I will create a random base64 string here. So this little string is something that I will use in my file here. And if we edit this plausible configuration, we will put that into the key base here. So this is the string we will use there. I will put in an email here. Let's say hello@danielperson.dev. My username, I will use Worden, like that. My password will be QWERTY, and the base URL. And here you can put in a DNS name, of course, but I will use HTTP 168.634 because that's the IP of this machine, and then 8000, which is the port. So if you have port forwarding and added a domain, then you will just put in the domain here. So this is what will be the base for URLs that you are creating in the software. Then we need to check our status of our Docker, and it's active and running at the moment, otherwise we have to start it. So let's run Docker Compose up and then as a daemon, and I need to run it as sudo because I don't have root on this machine, haven't put myself in the Docker group. So what it will download now is Bytemark SMTP to be able to send SMTP messages from this marketing solution if you want to do email campaigns and so on. I will not look into all the features of this software. I will install it and look at other things. It will install the Postgres library because it will use the Postgres database engine in order to run this. So that is, of course, good that it does that for you, so you don't have to do that setup by hand. So now it's done a lot of extracting here. Next up, it will install ClickHouse from Yandex. And Yandex is a web browser in my mind from Russia, which might give you a little bit thought around this. But the Yandex that we know here is actually a company in California, and the ClickHouse server was invented by a couple of Russians, but have then been open sourced and is used by a lot of people in order to handle large amount of statistical data and creating models where you can show that data in a live setting. So if you have a lot of data in your database and you want to have a live view of that, this ClickHouse server will handle all that for you. So that's why it's installed that. And next, last but not least, we will install the Plausible Analytics package, which is what we looked at the source code that I downloaded. So this is what will be running on this server and using the other dependencies. So it will take a little while for this to get up and running, and we can look at some source code in the meantime. So if we go over here, we see this hosting, which I was installing, and then we have this Plausible.js, which is the actual script that you will be running on your web page. So let's look a little bit more into this one. So here we have, for instance, the start of the script. We will find the window location and the window document and give some vars for that. And then after that, we will fetch the script element, so the element of this specific script. And there is a compat mode that is using the get element by ID to get the script tag. But now in new browsers, you can actually get current script to get the script element. So this is for IE and older browsers in a compat mode. And then we want to get the endpoint, which is the data API attribute. We will look at that specific script later on, but there will be a data attribute API where you can fetch the specific information about the endpoint. And then if you have any exclusions, then we will use that here. And so this is when we have exclusions enabled. And then we have this little function to send warnings. So this is just if we have a warning event happening. Then we have this default endpoint. So it will figure out what the default endpoint will be here, depending on this script element. So it will take in the source attribute and split it by this slash, take the first thing as a protocol, and then it will take the host as the second in the list. So 0th is the protocol, second is the host, and then it will create this protocol host API event for that. Or if available, it will just take URL source origin. So that this is the compat way of doing this. This is the new way of doing it in newer browsers. And then we have this trigger. So we trigger event. And if we aren't running a script that is local, this will be running and checking if we are local host or if we are 127.0.0 and so on. Then we will, or if we are running in a file location, then we will warn about localhost and return. So we will not trigger this event. And if we are running any of Phantom, Nightmare, WebDriver, or Cypress, which is commonly used ways to run a website and do testing, then we will not trigger this either. And if we have set this local storage plausible ignore flag, then it also will stop here and not run this script. We have more for exclusions, so this will run through and exclude certain paths and certain pages. And then we have the specific payload that we want to go. So we send a payload there where the name of the payload is event name. If we have a manual script, we will run the URL like this. So you can input the URL as an option. Otherwise, we will just take what is in the bar, so the location bar. Then we can go through here and get the data domain that we want to save for. So this is the specific domain that we want to track. Then we will pick up the referrer, put that in, and inner with in order to figure out which kind of device this is. Is it a tablet, a desktop, or a phone? And then we have this metadata we can send through and props that we can send through if they are set. And if we have hash enabled, it will set this hashing flag equals to 1. So it will hash things and send it that way. And then we will use the really old way actually of sending data. So this is from Internet Explorer going on, a way to send IX messages using the HTML HTTP requests, which should be available. I would have used fetched here, but it's very similar and perhaps not required in this specific setting. And then we have, if we want to track outbound links, it will handle those outbound links like this. And here we can see that it takes in an event as a target. It looks at aux clicks and clicks. And if it finds anything of that, it will fetch the parent node and so on. And here it will do a plausible outbound click link for the specific link host and so on. What we can see down here is that it actually will, when you click anything, wait 150 seconds before it actually moves over to that screen, which means that it will take a little longer for each click to register and you will move on. And this is so it can actually send the data before the script is removed from cache. And then we have this register outbound links event. So it will put on those on different event listeners. And then we have this, which I think is very weird that they have a separate if statement for registering these. I would have put them in the same if statement, but that's fine, I guess. We have another if statement here if you are running the plugin or extension of file downloads. And here we can see that they have a bunch of different file types that they look for, and you can also add to the script element a file types type in order to figure out which things to track. So file types to track is what you put in there, and then it will handle this similar to the actual link clicking. And down here we have this 150% before we actually go to that location, and we will send this file download here. And is download to track is just a function to look if the file to types to track is within this statement here, and then we just go through and check each file type. And here we have these click handlers that we will add for click and aux click to track the different download links. And here we have a way to set in the specific trigger that we want to trigger on different things. So what we call plausible here is the actual trigger, and we will go through and add everything that is in queue at the moment if there is anything saved. And if it's not a manual script, because we can install this as a manual script and then send each trigger manually in the page instead. If you have a single page, there is the single page application, then there is a guide on how to set that up and how to send different events. And you will probably use this manual setup. But unless we have this manual setup, we will go through here and create this function for page, where we can set which was the last page and then trigger a page view if we have seen a new page. And then if we are using hashes, we will save the if the last page was the same as this page, the path name, then we will not trigger anything. And then down here we have a hash change event that will check and push the page. And then we will handle the history. So this is an interesting functionality actually, where you go through and get the window history. And then if you have a push state, then you will pick that original push state and instead set your function here. So you will apply the push state, but you will also run a page trigger. And the same goes if you're popping a state, then you also want to listen to that pop and put the page there. So you can actually go back and forth in the web browser with your back and forth buttons, and it will actually trigger on those as well. And I really like this solution. And down here we have handle visible change. So if the document visibility changed to visible, we will count that as a page load as well. And down here we have the pre-renderer tag. So if it's that, we will add this visibility change to this document. Else, if we don't have this pre-render state, then we will just trigger a page view when the document is loaded. So all these if statements here, if you have hash and so on, why is that in the code actually? So if we go back to our screen here and go into the analytics and then go into the tracker, which was what we were looking at. So here in the source, we have this specific tracker, Plausible JS. And if we run npm install here, it will install a couple of different required things in order to actually build this script. And if we run npm run deploy, it will create the JS files that we actually are using in our front end. So it will create the Plausible JS, but also a bunch of JSs that has these different extensions to them. And that's how we are using this script. So it takes a little while to create different. And if we go back here and go into priv, and then into tracker, and then into JS, you can see here that we have a bunch of different files that is adding all the different if statements. So we have plausible, file download, hash, manual, outbound links, for instance. That is one set of extensions that you can use. And if we look at LSAL size, then we can see that the smallest one is actually, if you are running plausible local manual, then it's only 884 bytes. If we are running the plausible JS as is, it's 1335 bytes. And if we are doing this in reverse, we can see that if we are running the plausible combat exclusions, file downloads, outbound links, then it will be 2817 bytes. So however you run this tracking script is really small and will not really impact any download that you have from your customers. So now this should have started. So if we switch over here and go to localhost port 84, we should see here nothing there. So this is the screen I want to go to. Hello, Daniel person.dev, and then we had QWERTY as our password. So now we are inside of the GUI for this application. If we add a website here and say that we want to use localhost, for instance, and let's see here, that's the domain, yes. And then we will say that we are using the Brussels, Copenhagen, Madrid, Paris, perhaps. So I will add that script here, and then I get a scriptlet here with the specific path to the Plausible JS script, and the data domain is localhost, so I can start collecting data there. Go back to my my editor. So here, so this editor here, I actually have this script already, but you see that I'm not using, if I add this script here, you see that there is a difference here. First off, you have the machine, but other than that, I have added local here, because if I don't do that, I can't run this on localhost. So if I were to open this index.html and I didn't have local in it, it would not register anything. So if I go back here, go to the document and reload it, it will come up here as a trigger with a page view and so on. And you can also see down here that we have top sources, Twitter, and the medium is social media, source Twitter, and the campaign is milestone. And that is something that I put into my URL here. So I put in UTM medium social, UTM source Twitter, UTM campaign milestone. And these are commonly used ways to track different links online when you're doing analytics. I'm not an expert on this, but I know that in their documentation they are talking about that the medium could either be an email campaign, so email, social, if it's an organic content post, or it can be social plus paid, if it's a campaign that is a paid social media post. You can have CPC, which is pay-per-click address, or you can have display if it's a banner somewhere. You can have affiliate if it's affiliate marketing campaigns, or referral if it's an organic campaign on other websites. So you have a bunch of different mediums that you can use. Then the source is whatever you want to call the specific source you come from. In my case here was Twitter. because this was a Twitter link, but you can say whatever the source was for this specific link. And then you have the campaign. It's the campaign name. You can also have UTM underscore term if you want, if it's a search term that you are searching for, or UTM content if you have a campaign and then you have different links within the same campaign and want to distinguish between them, then that is something that you can use here as well. So this is what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about this Plausible platform where you can set up something that could give you statistics on your users on your site, which has a very small impact on the actual page loads, but still can give you a lot of interesting information. You can get everything from top pages visited to which pages people usually leave your site from, and what kind of browser, OS, and so on is used when you are visiting this site, and also what countries people come from. I hope that you found this interesting. I hope that you learned something today. If you liked this video, give it a like, share it with your friends and colleagues. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. And I really hope to see you in the next video.